Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima Ayede. I'd like to apologize because today I'm going to make another detour from our regular scheduled programming. Because rather than going on with qualifications frameworks like I promised, I just had an interesting experience with another wedding vendor, and I figured let me share that experience today so you can see how these ideas that we discuss on the podcast directly relate to our business and how it increases the odds of us growing our profits, or on the converse, how we lose money if we do not take these ideas seriously about coming up with a sales process. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because this company is if you're a wedding photographer anyway, it's one of the more respected companies, if I could put it that way. Because when I was based in Lagos, they had an outfit there. Although at the time I did all my business with 5D. And when I got to Abuja, 5D wasn't here, so I shopped around a little bit. But eventually 5D came to town, and so that's why I started doing all my fulfillment. I would do my albums there. I'll do my prints there, even though I got my frames made in other places. And so 5D was my go-to spot. Now, unfortunately, with the lockdown from March of last year, 5D went out of operations, well, at least 5D in Abuja. So since then, I've been looking for a new place to run my fulfillment, because if you're a wedding photographer, it's really important that you have a place that you trust where you can go design your photo books, have them printed and bound, frame all your stuff and make whatever other deliverables that you need. Now, these houses are also important in the wedding context, because a lot of these people don't just do fulfillment for wedding photographers alone. They also do fulfillment for event planners, and so you can go there and get your banners made, your backdrops made. That's when you want to personalize your banners and backdrops with the bride and the groom. So these outfits are really, really useful to the wedding trade. Although I must confess, when I make episodes of this podcast, I always forget that they are a part of our industry, and I always speak directly to wedding planners, photographers, makeup artists, cake people, pyrotechnics, MCs, stuff like that. I keep forgetting about people who are on the fulfillment end, like all these print houses. So anyway, one of these companies has been in touch with me since Lagos. But at the time, I was already doing business with 5D and Swift. So I really didn't need another fulfillment company, because I already had two people that I trusted for various aspects of the business. Now, to their credit, they have been calling for a long time. Not persistently, maybe once in a year they call. They say, Oga, how far? We haven't heard from you. Those types of calls that I say you shouldn't bother making, because I think they're ineffective. However, I hung on to their details because, in this business, you never know. Sometimes the unforeseen happens, like my trusted partner, 5D, going out of business. And lo and behold, I need a new fulfillment center. So I received one of those calls, and the tone was the same. How far? We haven't heard from you. And I figured, okay, I'll come in and have a look at samples. Please send me the pricing information that you have. And to their credit, they sent it. That was good. I find that really commendable, because a lot of people, when they try to drum up business and they get in touch with the customer and they don't have their own sales process, but the customer recommends a sales process, most people don't follow through. So there are lots of other vendors who have tried to ask for my business, but then I give a simple assignment like, okay, no problem, just send me the price list, and then they don't send. I guess the rationale is that they're not going to bother sending a price list because somebody might not be interested. But the bottom line is, you need to have your own sales process, or be ready to comply with whatever sales process that the customer has, because sometimes the customer might indeed be serious, but they don't know what best to go off of, just price. And so they will ask the most obvious thing: send me your pricing information. Now, anyway, so to their credit, they sent the pricing information, and I picked a day, which is today, to go to the place to look for samples. I got there, Finding the place was a little difficult. It's around the UTC area in Abuja. For those of you who live in Abuja, you know that it's more like a artistic district. The Center for Arts and Culture is right here. There are several printing hubs here, photography hubs. It's quite a busy area. So anyway, I was able to find the place. I went upstairs, and then, lo and behold, we get there, and the lady who I've been talking with over the phone for the last couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years, she just leads me into the room, and then she wanders off and then goes into the production suite where they're currently working on something. And okay, for a while I'm confused. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. But since I told them I was here to look at samples, I started flipping through the samples. Now, these people know, or rather they should know, that I am a wedding photographer. All the samples that they have there, beautiful samples by the way, but they for some reason they're more what's it called, like they have stuff about photography associations and students unions and all those kinds of stuff. So their print is fantastic, but the thing is, I'd like to see wedding ideas expressed in these formats. And so I asked, do you guys have any wedding books? And then her response is the glib no, and then she goes back to facing the computer. So I have a look, and I do the polite thing, and I say, okay, thank you very much. The price list that you sent me, does that include designing? To which she answers no. And I say, okay, thank you very much. You guys have a nice day. And then I walk out, and that's it. And that's the sum total of the whole experience. Now, this is the reason why these ideas that we express on the podcast are important. You'll remember in earlier episodes that I've said that if you're going to outsource your sales and marketing function, if you're going to get outsiders to do it, or if you're going to get members of your staff to do it, you have to make sure that you, the owner of the business, in this case the printing business, you have some familiarity with your customers and with the industry, and so because of that, you're going to be able to design a holistic sales process that takes people right from the very beginning, when you reach out over the phone or when you meet them at the wedding expo or whatever it is, and take them up to the point where you get them to buy. And in this case, they have no sales process. So basically, the owner of this business just told this girl, pick up the phone and make some calls, and that is just the sum total of the the guidance that he gave her. And you really can't run a business like that. You just tell your underlings, pick up the phone and make some calls. You need to train them and run them through the whole process of, when you pick up the phone, when you make the call, this is what you say, these are the outcomes we're looking for. When they come into the showroom, this is how we run a presentation, and this is how we build a relationship with them. This is how we get them to commit and to do business with us. You need to have all these conversations up front, or else what is going to happen is that this girl is going to pick up the phone and keep saying, we haven't heard from you, and then eventually, when the person shows up, the girl doesn't know. She has no idea what to do with this person. So what's she going to do? Just leave the person alone in the showroom and then wander off. And let's be realistic about this. So yes, there are some people who are in a very tight situation and they need someone to fulfill their order right now. And if that were the case, of course, I'll place the order immediately and do business. But the average person who walks in just to make inquiries is not in such a tight spot. So if the person saunters in and you let him linger or let her linger, chances are they're going to saunter out as well. So it's not just for people who run fulfillment centers, but it's the same with wedding photographers or wedding planners. So you harass your staff, go out, make some calls, they call people, but if the bride walks in and has an awkward standing experience, nobody talks to her, she just looks at some samples, she will say, okay, thank you very much, I'll be in touch, and then she'll walk out. So you need to design a sales process before you outsource the process. And this is a pet peeve of mine when it comes to certain industries, especially in the photography space, where somehow we think that having pretty girls is going to solve the problem. So yes, you have a pretty girl who is manning the front desk and she looks really nice and her shape is, tight and she's articulate and all that. But that doesn't mean it's going to translate into more money for you. We need to make sure that these salespersons that we have for the business, apart from being confident looking and real attractive and sounding very articulate, they also need to know how to sell, how to build a relationship, and how to guide people through a buying process. So, for instance, let's say this said girl had been a listener to this podcast. She might have listened to previous episodes and have heard something about the qualifications framework that we discussed last week. And even if she didn't know anything else to do, she would have done just that when I walked in. She would have run me through a qualifications framework. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. I'm glad that you're finally here, even though we've been speaking for a very long time. It's nice to finally meet you in person. Please, could you remind me, did you say you're a wedding photographer? Oh, okay, good. These are the wedding samples that we have. What kind of timelines are you used to? How long does it take for you to deliver to your clients? Okay, that's fantastic. We can work with these timelines. Or she will say, oh no, these are the kind of timelines that we cannot, not the kind of timelines that we work with. What kind of design standards, what kind of design aesthetics, were you used to in the past? What kind of designs were you used to? Was it the simple outlay like this, or was it a collage that looks like this or like this? These are the kind of conversations that she would have engaged me in, to know what my experience as a wedding photographer has been with other companies, how we've gone around fulfillment, the quality of service that I expect, and her presentation would have been built around what to expect working with them, how our working relationship is going to go forward, and things of that nature. So, basically, today's episode is just a rant to say that the ideas that we are discussing right here on this podcast we're not just being excessively academic or excessively technical. And those of us who talk about these things are not just showing off that, we can read expensive business books or whatever, or our head high up in the clouds. This thing translates to actual money. Some of you have people who are walking into your establishment and just sauntering around clueless, and because of that they just saunter right out. So it's the same thing whether we talk about online. So people are just coming, hanging around your Instagram or your website or whatever, and you don't have a clear process for how to engage with the customer through a conversation, and they just amble in, and of course they're going to amble out. So the ideas that we express on this podcast are serious. So please, guys, let's pay attention to these sorts of things. So if you're a fulfillment center, or you're a wedding planner, or you're one of these wedding photographers who is trying out a business model, so you have a physical location, but your cousin is there, or your little sister is there manning the place, taking care of it for you, you need to make sure that cousin or sister, you guys have had that conversation about, this is how we sell, this is our sales process, this is our philosophy. When we pick up the phone, this is how we get them in, this is how we have the conversation, and this is how we get them to take the next step. So, that's the summary basically. So today's episode is just me having an angry rant about how we run through, we go through all these trouble to set up a business. We buy our equipment, we rent the space, we print the flyers. What else? We run the Instagram ads. We do every single thing to get this business going. But then the crucial bit about how are we actually going to sell and have a conversation with the customer, we don't have that conversation. We just assume that everybody should know how to do it. So, please, let's take these ideas seriously, and let's start being fair to ourselves and to our businesses, and also to our employees and people who are trying to help us out in our business. So let's just assume that this lady is the younger sister of the business owner. Be fair to your younger sister. Tell her that this is what you're going to expect when you pick up the phone and someone comes in. Expect this. Try to have this kind of conversations. Let's give people what they will need. Let's give them the knowledge that they will need to be effective in helping us build our own businesses. And apart from that, this kind of knowledge that we give to our employees, to our underlings, or to our family members, whoever it is that is helping us out in their business, it's going to serve them well as well, because they'll leave us eventually and they'll try to start up their own hustle, and it's going to help them in their own business, and they're going to be grateful to us for putting them through these things. Anyway, let me stop. I think I've been rambling on for too long. So, bottom line, all these ideas that we discuss here are not academic ideas. These are real life ways by which you can either make money, or in this business's case, ways in which you are going to lose money. Having had this experience with them, I now see why, even though 5D is out of business, unfortunately, but Swift is still around. I now see why Swift and 5D seem to be seem to do better than they are, because this kind of experience I never would have experienced it with 5D, and I never would have experienced it with Swift. Okay, so that's it for today. At the next episode, I'll return to the regular scheduled programming. I will continue the conversation about qualifications frameworks. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.